It's almost never been easier to engage with an elected official.
What is a typical day like for you as mayor?
This is a very tough question. No, actually, it depends on the day. So like Tuesdays are actually some of our more, I guess, could be the days that can kind of take on a life of its own. Tuesdays we have our city council meeting. So sometimes our agenda is just easy to get through. Sometimes we have a lot of robust debate or public comment, and sometimes we're going a little longer than anticipated, which means people don't get lunches, which means people get a little crabby. So a Tuesday is usually much different than other days. However, my day typically, I come in pretty early. I come in usually around 7 or 8, and my goal is to knock out all my policy type work in the morning. And then if the calendar's where we want it, we'll have public stuff where we can get out of the office and actually go meet with folks. We'll do either visits to schools, I'll read books to little kids, or we go and we do like ribbon cuttings at new businesses, basically getting out there trying to not only show the public that the city of Wichita, our government, is there for them and wants to be good partners, but also it feels good. As you can tell, I don't have windows. Like, it feels so good to get out of this building and just get into spaces with folks, and have an opportunity just to chat with people about how things are going in their life here in Wichita.
Yeah. And what is your favorite part about being mayor?
Being mayor is actually, I call it scoring points, and that is when we take an idea or basically a problem and we find a solution for it, or somewhat of a fix, whether it's a policy fix or a network fix, and seeing that go through the process and actually pass. So my favorite part about being mayor is when we're in positions and have opportunities to do something really good for either an organization or for folks in our community that we know is going to help them, but there might have been some wrangling in the background as far as money or policy or different stuff that we have to do as a legislative body to get us there. It's usually seeing the result of that type of work. There's no feeling that matches that when you do something that you know is going to be good for the community, and you have to get through the obstacles of bureaucracy and also politics to see the results. And when you do see those results, it's a great feeling.
Okay. What do you think is the most difficult part about being mayor?
So one of the most difficult parts about being mayor, in my experience, is a couple things. Frankly, being mayor in the city of Wichita, our government is formed different than mayor of Kansas City, Missouri, or Oklahoma City. So those mayors have different powers than I do, for example, because our government is we're a legislative body, but I'm not the executive of it. I'm a member of that body. So I think one of the more difficult stuff is trying to, when we have problems or issues that come up, is basically trying to navigate expectations on what we can and can't do as mayor. So usually my job is to say, hey, this is what I can do to come alongside a nonprofit or come alongside, let's say, the county government to help facilitate something that might be in their lane. But I don't have executive authority to do this or that. So I think one of the most difficult parts about being mayor is usually talking about what the position really entails. Because I think folks, if they see other cities doing other things, they assume, well, the mayor of Wichita can do this or that. And the reality is our system's a little slower because you have to come up with 4 votes. The mayor can't just wave his wand and make something happen. So we've seen that throughout the my term, because we've had a lot of, we had COVID, we've had the max grounded, which caused a lot of economic hardship. We've had just a lot of stuff we were hit with. And as we move forward, we have to move forward really as a majority, not just as the mayor. So some of the frustration that I get is from folks who think that, I can do something about the school board because Chicago's mayor is actually a school board president as well. Or I could do something about public health. Well, the county is actually the board of public health. So usually trying to figure out, okay, what is our role when it comes to putting out some type of solution for an issue? Is it bringing people to the table, or is it something that I can get the council involved in? But that's been more frustrating, is trying to navigate the expectations of folks when it comes to meeting the needs.
Yeah. Okay, fourth question is, what ways can high school students be more involved in city and local government?
So there's a lot of ways I think young people can get more involved. Basically, showing up is one of them, of course. And that's half the battle, because you're actually building relationships with people at City Hall. Being out, introducing yourself, knowing who your council member is, taking an effort to build some type of relationship with that council member, and also getting involved, of course, in the political process. And I'm going to take my mayor hat off for a second and get a political hat on for a moment. And the reason why is because, as someone who's been involved in campaigning since, at least way back, my first campaign I worked on was in 2006.
Yeah.
I know that there are, for example, in my House district, back when I was in the legislature, there's 22,500 people in my district that represented. 10,000 of them were registered to vote. 6,000 of them actually did vote on presidential years, and 4,000 on non-presidential years. Which means that once you get involved and you actually vote, we actually have a list of people who are most involved, in elected officials and parties and people who do surveys. They will usually reach out to the people who participate for your opinion. So if you get a poll from like a gubernatorial candidate or a survey from the city of Wichita, usually it's going to folks who are active. At least active means like you at least vote. So I think there's a double hit with this, where of course voting shows that you're expressing your opinion on the future of our state, of our city, of our community, but also by being active as a voter, you're more likely to be surveyed. You're more likely to have an elected official knock on your door and ask your opinion on stuff. You're more likely, again, to have be a part of that conversation because of resources and basically how I guess campaigns run.
Yeah.
Now, that's the politics side, about making sure that you get involved with that. On the governing side, it's a lot about building relationships. I think that some folks wind up being intimidated by those who are elected, and I get it, but also I've been in this for a while, where everyone here is just pretty, for the most part, pretty normal.
Yeah.
And we want to help people. That's what drives the majority of folks to elected office. The ones who are in it for themselves, for ego, they normally don't last. They normally, fall off after a couple terms maybe. But the ones who stick around are the ones that you can build a relationship with. So if something does come up, an opportunity to serve on a board, or there's an issue, that's not the first time you're encountering those people. Is when you need something from them. Instead, you want to have that back and forth relationship. Very easy to do on a local level, because you can find us at DAB board meetings, at local, I think every month they do a breakfast. There's a lot of opportunity to engage and just kind of be on a fly on a wall with some of the discussion, but eventually you're going to have a topic that you want to see push forward, and it's better to do that, in my opinion, when you are already familiar with not just the electeds, but the people around the electeds.
Yeah. And that's our second to last question. What ways would you say are best for young adults and high school kids looking to be more civically engaged? So I guess
so that one ties into the last question, of course. But civic engagement is, in my opinion, really not just participating, but also being familiar with not just our process, but what's happening at the state level. With young people, I usually steer them towards the KS leg hashtag, for example. So hashtag KS for Kansas, and leg, like your leg, right?
Yeah.
And I tell old millennials like me, like it's like going to a chat room. Like you click on it, and then you got everyone who is talking about the legislature, and that's including elected officials, the lobbyists, the reporters. Everyone is now conversing on whatever's happening there. Incredible way to get civically engaged in understanding what's happening at the state level. At the local level, I think there's a lot of opportunity to, again, not only show up to meetings, but also follow along and stay in contact through social media with your representatives on either level, the school board, city, or county. But that's probably the best way to how I'd start with young people is take advantage of social media. A lot of us are on social media. We're not as funny as you guys. I mean, we're actually hilarious, but we don't do the TikToks as well. But again, we're just in a moment where it's almost never been easier to engage with an elected official, if that's something you want to do. And the other thing I'll say is I don't know anyone except maybe statewide elected officials and congressional people who don't run their own social media. So if you interact with me on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, if you interact with me on TikTok, I don't know how to interact back. But if you interact with me, you're getting me. I'm the guy who's going to respond back to you. And sometimes I find it where people, they're basically angry and they're yelling at you. And then when you respond back, they might not know that, hey, you're actually talking to the mayor of Wichita right now. I'm just watching my kids playing the sprinklers and checking my notifications. And I'm trying to dialogue in that moment. And I think that some folks, and I've had this before, like, this isn't really the mayor. This is probably a staffer. And like, I've done this before where I'll kind of do a selfie with me holding up like a piece of paper, like, hey, so-and-so, whatever the screen name is, like, I'm actually not a staffer. And, like, just kind of have fun with it a little bit, but it allows you, I think, to take what could be anger and turn it into dialogue, because I think people will basically, when they're upset with something that's happening, will take it out on elected officials at the local and state level. Usually, you can turn it into a dialogue because you're not just screaming into the internet, right? Like, you're actually, and you're more likely to get a dialogue going on if you're just, hey, what's going on here? Or I saw this in the news. Is this true? Is there other, I guess, other information about this? Usually that's the best way to interact with folks, and especially if you're young, because you're going to have access to a lot of those sites.
Yeah. Okay. So our last question is, are there any ways high school students can be involved in upcoming campaigns this year or next year?
Oh yeah, oh for sure. So one of the, I think, best ways to get involved with elected officials is through campaigning, and I'll tell you why. And activism is also really another route as well. But campaigning, young people basically, and I did this when I was in college, and this is how I got involved. It's an opportunity to not only put some volunteer work on your resume, and also get letters of recommendation for college or for anything you need afterwards. But you're going to meet a community of folks who match your values. And by matching values, usually if you're with a particular candidate that you're attracted to, it's because of their values, right? There's something in common there. And then other people, you'll be able to basically be around people who are fighting a good fight, and you have similar issues that you do. So there's a bit of a community aspect to it. Also, anyone who's ever worked alongside me or with me, like, I have their back forever. Like, no, I'm still writing letters of recommendation, 5 years later, for someone who worked with me who needed to go to law school or grad school, because there's something about campaigning where you're just kind of in the trenches together, as a team, and you build these relationships and this trust. So I think it's a really good opportunity. And young folks, they have, and I don't want to sound too old, right? What I say is like, they have more energy. They're able to get out and knock doors. They're able to engage with voters, and also what you guys bring to the table today that I think is different than it was when I first started out is a knowledge of social media and marketing. That is kind of, your generation kind of grew up doing this, while which allows, I think, for a different level of interaction with particularly Gen Z, other young people who kind of get the jokes, so there's other stuff that young folks bring to the table that is really important in campaigning. The only thing I would say, however, and this happens quite a bit, is you get some folks who step up, step out, and they want to be really, they're very impressive, they look great on paper, they want to plug into a campaign, and frankly, they don't want to work, or they'll take a position that they kind of hate, but they really want to be a part of the campaign. They wind up hating the campaign because they signed up to do something they don't, like data entry or something along those lines. So my other advice is basically, if you want to get into the world of campaigning, it's a lot of it's not flashy. It is a lot of work, and the candidates do it too. I have to knock doors. I have to go out, do data entry once in a while, even as a candidate. I did data entry last week. Like the type of stuff that I think some people would say, well, this isn't like my resume is too good for this or that. Like when you're campaigning, it's really all hands on deck. What needs to get done in that moment. So that's the only other thing I'll add is throughout my 10 plus years of experience campaigning. Once in a while, you get folks who I think believe, well, I want to do policy research, or I want to do, like, they want to do something that's higher level, but frankly, that doesn't get people elected. So they usually don't last in the campaign world. So having a good understanding of what campaigning services are and, a willingness to be a part of the team is not only important, but that's how you move up. Because you will almost never see an advertisement on the internet or anywhere for like a campaign manager or for a field director or for any of these other positions, because it's almost always word of mouth. And it's people like me who've been in here for a long time who someone will say, well, who can help run so-and-so's campaign, or who can do this or that, and then we think, we kind of, it's not just me, but other folks who have done this, well, so-and-so was really great on my campaign, or really impressed with so-and-so on that campaign, and I bet they could take on more responsibility by doing this. So a lot of that is about reputation and word of mouth. So it's I think creates a lot of opportunities for young people because you can move up pretty quick. For example, one of Laura Kelly's folks who started out on my campaign back in 2010, just doing data entry, and then she helped me win in 2012, and just hung around basically, and everyone just kind of recommended her to the next thing, and well, now she's working in Topeka full time for the governor. And usually, I don't think she ever put a resume online. Like, it's just getting to know the people, and really the currency in this game is getting done what you say you're going to get done. And that sounds silly, but I know a lot of folks in government and politics who say they're going to do something and they don't actually get it done. And that's frustrating in a campaign environment where we all like lean on each other to, basically, you're in a boat, you're all trying to row the same direction. And there's no in the middle. You're either making us go faster or you're making us go slower. There's no pace. Like, did we go faster today? Did we go slower? And that's kind of the attitude with it. So I think for young people who want to get involved in campaigning, just know it's not going to be glamorous. It's work, but if you enjoy that stuff and you perform well, you'll have more opportunity down the line.